Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. We are back with a recruiting update for the offense here in mid-June, and man, has it been busy, right? I mean, there has been a lot going on. Commit after commit after commit on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. We're going to go to the offense first, though, and we're recording this on a day when Landon Davidson has committed to Nebraska. He's a 6'4", 308-pound offensive lineman out of Broomfield, Colorado. That's a northern suburb of Denver. That follows on the heels of the commit of Jake Peters, a 6'3", 270-pound lineman out of Cedar Falls, Iowa. These are a little bit different guys, but I do anticipate both of them being interior linemen. Peters could be a center. He is kind of fits the size and the frame of what I think Donovan Real is looking for at that position. Yeah, he could probably put on about 15, 20 pounds, but I think he might be an heir apparent at center, whereas Davidson, he's got really good tape. He's a big guy. You know, he holds that 308 pounds. He kind of dominates a lot of the kids across from him. I'm not really sure why his recruiting ranking is what it is. I understand why Jake Peters is kind of a low 3-star because of the size, but with Davidson, I'm not exactly sure. He's probably going to be a pretty good interior lineman, and my sense is by the end of the recruiting process, he's going to have a much higher rating than he does Dow. In both cases, Nebraska offered these guys at camp. They came, they camped, they got an offer, they came and took an official visit, they committed to Nebraska. This weekend, Nebraska's got a huge group of visitors coming, and this will be really, really interesting to watch. Danny Kalin, the quarterback, is coming, so it makes sense to bring a bunch of pass catchers in when your quarterback's here. He got the Elite 11 last week, so Kalin's going to be there, and so are Devon Hall and Isaiah McMorris. That's the plan anyway. These two guys, the Bellevue West wide receivers, Kalin's teammates, likely to visit. I think there's a decent chance they may even commit. I think that's the movement of this process. Yes, Tennessee gave Hall an offer, and that's interesting because he wanted an offer from Tennessee. No, I do wonder if Tennessee's coming in now and making the offer now that Nebraska appears more open to Hall coming to Nebraska. But there's really no way to determine that. It's kind of a messy situation a little bit, but Hall would be a very good pickup for Nebraska, and McMorris would be a terrific pickup. He's a little bit smaller than Hall, but he can play in the slot. He can kind of play anywhere. If Nebraska's able to pick up those two guys, that would be pretty darn impressive. Of course, Ainsworth tight end Carter Nelson is visiting this weekend as well, and that's a big, big visit. Obviously, Carter Nelson, the top ranked recruit in the state. He could go to Georgia. He could go to Notre Dame. He could go to Michigan. There's a bunch of different places he could go. Nebraska gets the final visit, so to speak, in June. The Huskers will be able to put their best foot forward. And at the end of the day, he either wants to go to Nebraska or he doesn't. I mean, clearly Nebraska is not as good of a football program as Georgia. We all know that. Clearly Georgia's put a bunch of tight ends in the NFL. We know that. So Carter Nelson either is going to want to go to Nebraska and help Matt Rule build it back, or he's going to want to go somewhere else, probably Georgia, the program that is currently the national champions and putting tight ends into the first round of the NFL draft. That's kind of probably the choice there. But Nelson will be down there this weekend, and that'll be an important one as well to watch. There's a big offensive tackle. I might even make the argument that the biggest visitor, presuming he does come, and I think he will, is Grant Brix. That's the Logan Magnolia offensive tackle, now a top 100 prospect, according to at least one recruiting service. Now, Logan Magnolia is not far from Omaha, probably, 45 minutes, not far. He kind of grew up a Nebraska fan. There's people in western Iowa that follow Nebraska as much as they do Iowa, so this isn't necessarily an Iowa legacy deal. He has visited all over the country. He's taken a lot of dynamic visits. Nebraska, again, gets the swing here, and I think Nebraska's in decent position, but this is going to be the one that they really want. I feel like they've gotten the interior linemen. Gibson Pyle, Jake Peters, Landon Davidson. Brix is a tackle. He's 6'6", 6'7". He has that frame for a tackle, and then maybe if you add one more after that, you'd feel like you're in pretty good shape, right? I don't know that they've added a tackle to this group. Now, they added a couple of tackles in the previous class, but Brix would be sort of the cherry on top, so to speak, of this class, and so that's one to really, really watch as well. Again, McMorris and Hall, Nelson, Brix. On the running back front, looks like that thing's going to go into the season. I don't know that Nebraska's necessarily got a running back that they want to necessarily take right now. They missed on a couple of guys. Nate Frazier is the #1 running back in the country. He hasn't committed anywhere, but of course he's the #1 guy in the country. There's a couple. They were going to bring in a guy from Philadelphia who committed to Minnesota before he got here, so Nebraska couldn't get him. There's a couple other players that decided to go other places. I think that's just a place where they're going to have to hit the reset button, maybe go down the list a little bit. If they're not able to get somebody here this weekend, they'll just have to wait until the season. Good news is with running backs, a lot of times guys emerge when they're seniors and they can end up being pretty darn good football players, and you don't always know it until they get there. Overall, Nebraska's class now at 14 commits with Davidson's commit is around top 25. But again, some of that's based on the number of commits that they have. It's not necessarily based on the rating of the commits. As time goes on, you'll see other teams sort of move up the list. But there's a ton of teams in the Big Ten that have a lot of commits already. So this is what happens now in college football recruiting. You've got to get the work done in July and in June and early July, because once everybody goes on vacation, the numbers just don't change that much. And so we'll have a really good sense of where Nebraska is at by the 4th of July. Sometimes you'll take commits all the way through the 4th, and then everybody kind of goes on vacation and you sort of hit the reset button. But that's an interesting place where Nebraska's at right now on the offensive side of the ball. That we will get to the defense here in a minute. Thanks, Husker fans.